And I would like to give thanks to all of my ancestors, every single one, and all of my children's 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 until the end of this universe. Greetings, dear soul. It is I, Crispy. Een Lak'esh Alakin. Namaste to start things off with. I am here today to talk to you about the 7 main levels of karma, and I'm attaching them loosely. I'm enfolding them within the framework of the 7 main chakras. As I always say, chakras! You can't evolve without them. And what is evolution if not transcending our karma, as we shall talk about quite a bit more in the next however long this video is. So yes, the 7 types of karma. Now, this is directly related to the last 2 audiobooks that I just made on my channel, Karma Yoga by Swami Vivekananda, and the book called Karma and Reincarnation by Dr. Hiroshi Motoyama. So this, among other things, of perhaps the last 20-ish years of study, 25, 30, the mid-90s, yeah, have led me to today. So let's begin. So what is karma? It's been coming up more recently in Western minds, and it was not in the whole Western framework. And by Western, I mean primarily that of the, let's call them Abrahamic religions, shall we? Yes, I think we shall. Make myself a little bigger here so I can see me while I'm talking to you. Karma is deeply embedded within most other cultures, I believe. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So what is it? Well, it's very simply action and reaction. The laws of physics. Every action creates a necessary and opposite reaction. So that's pretty informative, isn't it? Then we've got simple cause and effect. That's fine. In the, again, Abrahamic, or at least Christian Catholic perspective, we can talk about the golden rule, and we can say that Yeshua taught that. I do believe that to be true. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so we also hear a lot about good karma. Oh, he's got good karma. Oh, she's got bad karma, or whatever. That does make a lot of sense within the golden rule framework. And one other layer I'll add to that is the law of attraction. So whatever you put out comes back to you. It's very simple, right? Possibly. We also need to automatically include the concept of past lives here. Reincarnation, as I mentioned, that book by Dr. Motoyama, Karma and Reincarnation. Within the Buddhist, and even 1,000 years before the Buddha was born, or 2,000 before, or 3,000 before, the Vedic, the Hindu scriptures were talking about reincarnation and karma, and the chakras as well. So we have a lot to thank to that culture, those cultures. Now, this is why we hear about someone having let's say, bad things happen to them, but they're a good person. Well, karma, reincarnation, past lives. Okay, so just embrace that framework if you haven't yet done so, and it will explain what's going on here a lot better than if you ignore it. Okay, moving on. Now, I'm going to relate, and again, this is a general sort of putting together of karma and chakras. As far as I know, and I've done a lot of reading, there is nothing existing that directly connects karma and chakras. So this might be the first sort of publication of said blendings. So here we go with type 1. The first type of karma is yourself. It's you. It's your own life. And if there were no other human beings in existence, you could still have this type 1 karma to yourself. And also with animals and other things we'll talk about soon. But the first and most primary type of karma is yourself. Then we're going to move into relationships and the family. And first of all, again, we need to talk about reincarnation. And I do believe with all of my open heart chakra that the soul, that part of you that does reincarnate, chooses the parents and then comes through. And the reason we choose our parents is because of karma. What else could it be? Now, your other siblings, if you have any, also chose your parents for possibly different types of karma and possibly relating. Of course, we should include the concept that soul groups exist, and therefore parent and child might come through many lifetimes in many configurations, and we will talk about friends as well. So type 2, basically parent and siblings. There is some overlap, and we'll talk about that again. But type 3 is the spouse and children. So you can see there's a big overlap there, connection already. The spouse is a type of, we could call it friend, but it's really a different type of contract. A contract basically to create other human lives, okay? People who do get married and do not have children have a different framework for their karmic potentialities, we'll say. They have less karma to deal with, probably, than producing children, which creates more karma, simple. And more opportunities to dissolve it, which I'll talk about later. Type 4 is your friends, your people you work with, co-workers. And here we're getting into the heart chakra, but again, heart chakra can come into every single relationship, especially that for yourself, you and yourself. You need to have love for yourself. So here is where we start to diverge a little bit from the chakras and the types of karma connections. But again, there's overlap. They definitely all connect together. I think one of the limiting concepts about chakras is they're all separate. They are not whatsoever. It's a rainbow of light in your body, and each chakra is connected to each other chakra. For example, your root is connected to your sacral. Your root is connected to your solar plexus. Your root is connected to your heart. All of them are interconnected in different ways. Now, friends, bosses, co-workers, frenemies, of course, I'm just going to leave that there. But the non-DNA relationships are extremely important for karma and other things as well. Let's move on to type 5. This is a big one, and this mainly came through the book that I talked about at the beginning. Culture can be extremely karmic, especially if your culture doesn't believe in karma. Then you've just got people smashing into each other, bumping into each other, and thinking it has nothing to do with anything long term, if they don't believe in reincarnation as well, even if they do. So it's complex. We also need to include here subcultures, okay? So who you identify with. This also includes nationality, all right? Now, in some places in the world, their cultures are extremely old and very, I would say, affecting of karma. Same with religion. Some cultures not so. And I think we all know that in the past, let's say 300 years, there was a mass migration of people out of the old country and over to the new world. And a lot of them gave up their old traditions and old cultures and old religions even, and some of them brought them with them. So it's very complex, and that's what I'm getting at here. Karma is very complex. The other thing that may be connected here is I do want to say that the culture of certain, let's just say, armed forces, that also goes back a little bit to work, all right? Could be a job, if you will, but it's really a subculture. And the armed forces are all over the world, and people do lots of karma creation, which you might call bad karma, through the effects of their subculture, if you will, of, let's just again call it the armed forces, which in a way is also like a type of religion. Okay, so there's, again, so much overlap and interplay between all of these forces. It could be connected to the throat chakra. Sure, all of these are communicative, and all culture, all religion, all subcultures deal with communication. Of course, they all do, but like I said, they're all connected. Now, this one was interesting to me in Dr. Motoyama's book, partly again because I'm Canadian. My family does not even remember anything before 1885. There's no connection whatsoever. My last name is Madden. Some of you know that to be Irish. I have Irish, British, and French. My mother's maiden name was Benset, and her mother's maiden name was Gagnon. And that's it. I know nothing else from 150 years. A lot of North Americans don't have a strong connection to any one place. They moved, their family came over in 1861 and they sort of based themselves here, but people move around a lot. This is not so in many other cultures. A lot of people are very connected to the land, and for example, the First Nations of Canada and the native, I will call them Indigenous Americans. I don't like calling them Indians. I know a lot of them are comfortable with the word, but it was a mistake. Wrong word used by those people, So anyway, they grew up so closely attached to their geographical land. And, I think I'm a great aficionado of the Maya. There are so many stories of the Maya who grew up. You know, there's one place in Lake Atitlan where they call that lake the belly button of humanity, planet Earth, meaning, you know, the umbilical cord to humanity goes right in there, and they can walk for 1 hour, for example, from place to place, and they have a story that goes exactly that length of time relating to geographical figures, you know, trees, a stream, right? So a lot of people reincarnate into a place over and over and over again. Additionally, you may go to a place like that, or any special place of cultural embeddedness, and you might even have a past life memory come through. We call them déjà vu, or, you know, whatever, but really I do believe it to be resonance or memories of your past lives. And again, with the Maya, if you're the slightest bit interested in the Mayan calendar, it's probably because you had lifetimes as a Mayan. Same with these other cultures, okay? Moving on to type 7. Is it the last one? Oh my goodness. I think not. However, this is called humanity, meaning human, meaning all the human race has karma. You're human, and you share some of the same karma as all other humans. That right there is one of the major steps to oneness and non-duality, which we must start with our humanness before we go branching out into the whole bigness of everything. And then I do need to mention many other types. I'm just going to talk about a few. And here we might talk about the 8th chakra, sometimes called the soul star chakra. But again, this is very modern and may or may not be, you know, absolute truth, as it were. And I do believe that we could say the 8th is galactic, which would also include our little solar system. So, you know, for example, Venus and Mars. And then, you know, of course, we have to talk about star seeds, very popular term. And then we're going into the galaxy again, the Milky Way galaxy, including, of course, my personal favorite, the Pleiades, because maybe you don't know this, but the Mayan calendar came from the Pleiades. I have lots of videos about this if you need them. Of course, Sirius, Lyra, Centaurus, Epsilon Eridani. You know, there's a lot of star seeds out there. And wisdom about this is increasing. My next idea goes into, well, here we're getting into, again, this real new agey kind of look and feel to all of these supposed wisdoms, and they have made up all these terms that may or may not be true, may or may not help you. Just as a very quick example, spiritual chakras, does that mean the rest of them are not spiritual? Okay, so big, you know, massive confusion if you really want to get too into it, but it could be helpful. I have no idea. Just briefly, type 9, intergalactic. Therefore, we're going into the Andromedan galaxy. Now, I could possibly move back a little bit and say that with type 7, meaning humanity, not global as the planet per se. That's why I didn't use the word global. I said human. So a person who has transcended all of their karma yet retains their humanness would be an ascended master, as I believe. So that would be of the type 7, possibly, and also then possibly type 8. But again, we're just going into suppositions and guesses here, okay? It's possible for a starseed to be an ascended master, but not likely. The other reason I'm going to say that is because that with ascended masters, there is definitely an experience or the wisdom that you could call a collective consciousness. And so when we talk about star seeds, most of them are nowhere near the ascended master level. They're absolutely not collective consciousness. There's this sort of wanderer experience in a way. You could also say volunteers, yes, which is good, but because most of us, I'm going in the 99.99999 humans, lose our memory of our past lives altogether, that being an ascended master or part of a collective consciousness is extremely unlikely with the standard star seed, which I said was galactic and type 8. Now, again, a person would need to transcend all of those lower levels to be a part of a collective consciousness, an ascended master collected consciousness, for example, the Melchizedek, which I do believe to actually be galactic, not necessarily intergalactic. However, when we get into the universal, which would mean able to contact with, connect, communicate with any solar system, any galaxy in existence, in our physical universe, okay? Then we have the potential for things like the Metatron collective consciousness. And again, this is so far beyond what almost anyone on Earth could even understand, let alone partake of, okay? I'm not going to talk about who I think Yeshua or the Buddha or Krishna, who they were. Were they a universal ascended master collective consciousness that fractalized and came down? It's possible. I don't know. It's beyond my comprehension. And I would never say that they are this, okay? Now, let's continue with our informative display here. We talked about this, right? Remember? Good. Now, let's again refresh what karma is. The number one thing that keeps karma in your life is attachment. And Dr. Motoyama says, attachment is the root cause of karma. Well, okay. What does attachments mean? Well, one simple thing, and again, this relates to the self, okay? So your own attachment to a thing, craving something, could be a substance, could be a person or attention from that person or people, okay? And then, oh, I don't like that. And again, we're talking about past lives, and I do need to mention trauma and being attached to avoiding trauma will create the type of karma that will bring you right back into the exact same type of trauma, possibly on the other end. It's really complex and wonderful when you think about it. The last thing I will say is addictions related to those cravings, aversions, addictions to the thing, very powerful form of attachment, almost guaranteeing the return into the same situation that will provide the same attachment and detachment opportunities. Now, again, this is related to the self. What are the chakras? You have probably heard the phrase energy processing centers. And so, well, what energy? What is that? Like calories? Physical? No. It's the exact opposite of physical. It is spiritual, emotional, and thinking. Okay? Thoughts are energy, as we know. So are emotions, energy in motion. Now, as I mentioned, thousands of years ago, these theories began to come through to us. The chakras can also be called, I could say, energy processing wheels, okay? The concept of the spinning wheel, energy processing spinning wheels came through thousands of years ago. And I want you to expand that. This is not crucial to our discussion, but I truly believe that it's not a little dot in the center of your spine. It's moving out. And in fact, a better concept, I feel, that's more possibly helpful is that each of the chakras is a torus. The whole system creates a torus. You could also call that the Merkaba. However, if you can picture each one of your chakras like this, it will help explain the energy processing, input and output. So all of those are stacked up, and in the center of them is a pillar of light. And that pillar of light goes all the way down to the heart crystal core of planet Earth, and it goes all the way up to the epicenter of the omniverse, which I like to call the Hunabku. All right? All right. So, again, we talked about all of these. Now, let's continue the discussion. What are the root chakra issues, problems, concerns, connections? Number one of them all is fear, okay? Now, energized fear in a person creates certain things that de-energized, or I will say, the deer in the headlights response creates different responses. Full-on terrorism completely freezes up person. They are stuck. They cannot move, right? But energized fear moves into anger and even rage. On a lower, smaller scale, we've got, anxiety. Fear is anxiousness. And on a non-negative perspective, the root chakra is really just about physical being in the body, groundedness, all right? Being alive, being in your body, that's a root chakra thing. And then we move into, the mood or experience of protection and therefore lack of protection. So I'm mainly going to talk about the issues or the problems for the rest of this video, not about the flip side, but every chakra is benign. Every chakra is neutral. They do not have a positive or negative presence. They process that. And it's also very true that if a person were to lose the physical part of their body that the chakra is in, they would die. Okay? If you lose your root chakra, you're dead. The bottom part of your spine is gone, you're dead. It's simple. Okay? So there is a very, very close connection to the physical and the spiritual, and the chakras are a great entryway to combine them for you. So survival and of course this sense of belongingness, and here we're going to go into the family, which I mentioned was type 2, but I want you to think about an infant. All right. What is the experience of the infant? There are many, of course. Yeah, we would all love for that baby to be cherished and welcomed, and that is the case for some people, absolutely. If a person gets cut off from their family or tribe or whatever, that is striking directly at the root chakra. And again, it's connected to the others as well. And I'm going to make the case that the lower three are super interconnected. But again, it helps to have the framework of each individual one. So back to existence or survival, groundedness. If you don't have these in your life, you have serious root chakra issues just to survive. I will mention that I do feel, especially for someone who does not have food, shelter, or clothing, money is a root chakra issue. There's a lot of people who say, well, money is the third chakra, whatever. We'll talk a little more about that. Here comes the second chakra. What are the issues? Well, intimacy, the second chakra, creativity, the womb is there, the intimacy, the connection. Here we're talking about going from one thing, the root and individuality, into two things. So we're talking about relationship, all right? Of course, money also comes into creativity. We should mention the topic of manifestation here. A lot of people have issues with manifestation. Well, that's all about your creativity. Can you create financial manifestation? Very, very connected to your sacral chakra. And again, some people who have trouble with it, they've spent a lot of money and a lot of time on the workshops and it's still not working out. That is karma. That means they have not dissolved their attachments to their past lives when they have possibly taken a vow of being without money or whatever. Many possible issues there. Now, of course, sexuality, and then again, all relationships are very closely connected to the sacral chakra, which of course means money. Oh my goodness, wow, money, sex, and relationships, so tight. If a person is absolutely struggling for food, shelter, and clothing, they don't care about sex or relationships unless they can get money from it. Okay? Very intertwined. The last thing I'll mention here about the sacral chakra is guilt, and this is personally felt, by the way. If you project guilt onto somebody else, then it's shame, and you can also feel shameful about yourself. And again, we're tapping into the solar plexus chakra a lot here already. There's so much interaction between them all. How many people have used money as a guilt-inducing substance, we'll call it, right? Oh my goodness, it's very, very thick in our culture. So, which again is part of the solar plexus. First of all addictions are directly connected to the solar plexus chakra. Why is that? Well, self-esteem is a huge part of it. Self-control, choices, of course, boy, addiction to money. How many people are addicted to money? How many people have low self-esteem because of their relationship to money? Oh boy, the lower three chakras are the money chakras, all right? The ego chakras. Passive aggression as well as aggressive aggression is a solar plexus chakra issue. The whole victimhood, victim and victimizer is all solar plexus. And again, oh, do you think there's money related? Oh boy, oh boy. All right. Now, I just thought it was interesting. I haven't mentioned the other names of the chakra in Sanskrit, but Manipura and basically manipulation. Isn't that interesting? I don't know the actual connection, but there's the connection. So just a little bit more here. I do need to mention is the concept of the whole twin flame drama. I have done a few videos about this, and you can check them out. Obviously, there they are, but the whole thing needs to be talked about, okay? The concept that in the whole universe, which we'll just say is 1 trillion planets, we might be close with that, and on each planet there might be, well, here's our planet, 8 billion, let's say an average of 5 billion souls times 1 trillion. In that whole universe, there's one soul that split itself into two, and then they found each other on Earth, and they fight like motherfuckers. Oops, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. They just don't get along. That's the whole drama, and we need to go back again. It'll just help to explain. Yeah, come on back in there. Okay, it's all third chakra. It's all the ego. The whole concept of the empath, as in some people are empaths and some people are not, is a false concept. All human beings have empathic abilities. All human beings can have their narcissistic tendencies, all right? And this whole thing about the one soul that split itself off and came down, the belief, the concept is that you and me, we found each other. We're so special and rare, and the whole rest of humanity is just so below us. They're not like us. Can you see what I'm talking about here? Pure egotism. All right? Now, I do believe it to be true that approximately 1,000 twin flame couples exist on Earth. I have heard it said that there are 108 twin flame couples. That also might be true. It might be 0, and it might be 1,000, but it could be less. It could be 108. It could be 16. All right. On the whole planet, it is an extremely small number. In the past, I have said it's 0. The whole concept is a little bit fanciful. It creates separation from those two people who think they are so special and everyone else is not, therefore. And the whole, I'm going to call it an industry, the whole twin flame industry. How much money has been spent on this? And where was this industry 20 years ago? It didn't exist, all right? This whole thing is basically a waste of time, money, energy, all right? Just set it all aside. If you want to use the term soulmate, that's fine. But guess what? You and your parents are soulmates. You and your children are soulmates. You and your brothers and sisters are soulmates. We are all soulmates. Basically, the whole twin flame concept means two people get burned. That's all. All right. Next. So yeah, check out the Pleiadians, what they say. You know what? I'll just read you a tiny little bit. Bringers of the Dawn, the very first book by the Pleiadians, Barbara Marciniak, published in 1992, so that probably means being channeled in 91 or 90. Okay, so this is 35 years old. All right. First of all, talking about universal consciousness, I should go back to, the potential universal consciousness, universal karma as well. The very, very first paragraph of the very first Pleiadian book. We are here. We are the Pleiadians, a collective. That means a collective consciousness. Okay? No individuality. A collective of energy from the Pleiades. We have a long history. Our ancestors came from another universe that had achieved completion. A universe. You are simply working on a planet coming to completion, and we are here to help you with that task. This completion, or transformation, has been heralded by many for eons. It is an important time. What happens on Earth now will affect the entire universe. Okay? So here they are using the term universe as though there are many universes. And I do believe that to be true. Now, twin flames in that same book, right? Here we go. Females, you are stuck in your throat chakras because you agreed 4,000 or 5,000 years ago to be silent about the magic and intuition of what you represented and knew as one part of the twin flame. The twin flame in the male and female existing in one body, whether you are physically male or female. So they're saying that the female of the species 5,000 years ago knew that the twin flame is maleness and femaleness within one being, one person. All right? Just watch that video. That's the rest of it from the book. Moving right along. I'm going to say that the lower three chakras are the ego chakras. Very simply, fear and rage, intimacy, sex, creativity, addiction, control, victimhood, victimizers, and the narcissist, the empath. And it's all related to money. So the lower three chakras are the ego chakras. It's kind of undisputable. It's so true that I wish this were taught in probably, I think, high school, maybe grade 10 would be appropriate. Now, again, I think you remember that, whoops, hello, what happened here? Oh, PowerPoint. Silly PowerPoint. The three types of karma, I feel to be type 1, 2, 3, are super, 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 super connected with the lower three chakras, all right? Which those combine to create, let's just say, many, many lifetimes. These issues with your parents and your children and your siblings could keep you coming back into the wheel of samsara for a long time, right? So what's the solution? After you get tired of this, there's only one solution, quite honestly. Simply, and that is love. But it's actually not that simple, is it? It is and it isn't. You've probably remembering that the friends and work is love. And, you know, I think for most of us, just that light feeling of love is experienced from our friends. With the spouse, it can be heavily connected to so many other things. It's a heavier type of love. And if you happen to love your job, boy, oh boy, if you love your friends in your job, wow, it's almost like you won the lottery, okay? So hopefully that is the case for you in your life. Again, type 5 we've talked about. Now, to all of these, to everything we do, to every interaction, we have the potential to tie knots of karma. Attachment, knots, you could say, handcuffs in some cases. There's a lot of imagery to use here. Now, how do you untie them? One common term has been cord cutting. And I need to tell you right now that most of what's being taught as cord cutting is ineffective completely. It will add to your karma. If you think of a cord between two people and you just cut it, no, that does not work. Especially if you are cutting that cord with any lingering resentment or expectations of outcome, then you're increasing karma, all right? There are very few people who teach cord cutting that I would say does it in an effective way to actually cut your cords. And the only way to do that is with love, forgiveness, and gratitude. You have to say, oh boy, thank you for teaching me that. Oh, it was so helpful. Oh, I needed that lesson. And I totally forgive you. And I love you and am letting you go. That's the only way that cord cutting actually works. Ho'oponopono can be very helpful However, I do need to mention this. Do you know the four phrases? Maybe you do. It's been quite popular in the last 10 years or so. People tend to rattle them off. Oh, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And absolutely no emotional connection when they do that. So that's not ho'oponopono. Now, this is a very sensitive issue. And I just want to say this with a completely open heart here. If a person received trauma of any kind, it's a little bit hard for them to say, oh, I'm sorry you did that to me. Please forgive me. Thank you for traumatizing me, and then I love you. So very tricky. I think in a culture that is familiar with ho'oponopono, and both people could say that to each other, then wonderful. However, as I suggested, I don't believe this approach to be universal, situationally, okay? Now you can expand that out and go into the Een Lak'esh, the Namaste, and say, I'm another you. And so, yeah, and we're getting into, again, tricky territory with the law of attraction people here who say, well, that person attracted that to them. And it's true, in a way. It absolutely is. However, 13-year-old girl traumatized, bawling her eyes out after whatever activity has been done to her, which you cannot ignore. You can't expect her to say this, and I'm sorry, you can't. Maybe much later in life, she could, which would be wonderful. But I don't believe that to be the case for most people. Again, as I mentioned, with the cord cutting, forgiveness needs to be, it is the, I believe, most important factor. If you're familiar with the Course in Miracles and possibly this book, which I do, this one's 750,000 words, and they recommend reading one thing a day for a whole year. It's a lot. I do suggest you read this one. It's much shorter and gets to the point. The point is forgiveness, my friends. That's the whole point. Now, I will also mention that a lot of people study it a little bit and then they get on to the framework again of this sort of namaste or oneness or non-duality, and they then latch on to the belief that, oh, there's nothing to forgive. Yay! So I'm therefore not guilty of anything because the concept of sin is completely fake. And in a very real way, that is true. However, experientially, that is a massive bypass, okay? For most people. Some who are actually at that point where they've done the work, then it's true and it helps them. Otherwise, it creates a huge spiritual ego, massive, massive spiritual bypassing. Personally, as for myself, this is my video explaining the experience that I had in my second Vipassana meditation camp that transcended anything I have ever experienced before or since. And that explains to you the next few slides. I'm going to talk about what did happen to me is now something I teach as part of my Mayan embodiment readings. I bring this into the reading. I also give it away for free, which is what I'm doing here again. It comes down to this, and that was part one, saying download and print the contract. So screenshot, again, screenshot this, all right? Click. Now, screenshot this. And it's for those relationships that need to detach and dissolve the contract. I think it's a much better image to use detach than cord cutting, although that's basically what we're talking about here. I'm not going to read this out for you, but I will mention that doing it for oneself, top line, non-dominant hand. I am a right-handed man, so I wrote that with my left hand. Second line, block capitals as though you're filling out a legal document, which you are. Bottom is a nice and legible signature. So you've got your inner child, your ego, and your soul here, okay? I promise you, if you do this with the full intention that I recommend here, then it will have an enormously positive effect in your life. Also, one per person or entity. For example, the Canadian government, between myself and the Canadian government, all right? All right, so now I just want to compare. I didn't read those out for you, but you can do that. And again, it's an experience that happened to me, a very powerful, visceral experience that happened to me in Vipassana. But I want to compare, and I do need to mention that this happened to me long before I ever heard of Ho'oponopono. There's the phrases, as you know. My phrases that came to me are these, all right? So yes, the thank you means for the lessons, all right? It could be good, could be bad, right? So it could be both, right? If you're doing this for a parent, then yeah, there's some good and some bad, probably. So again, to compare, starting off with thank you, starting off with I'm sorry, please forgive me is very diminutive, all right? It just is. You can't not deny that. It's impossible to say that. I'm sorry, please forgive me. It puts you in the disempowered position. You start off with thank you, and then you say I am sorry, and then you say I forgive you. And that's without the expectation that please forgive me. It's not connected to them. You cannot control whether they forgive you or not. If we happen to live in the culture where people knew about my experience and people were saying this to each other, that would clear things up, possibly more than Ho'oponopono. I don't know. I'm just saying. When you start off with, I'm sorry, please forgive me, that misses a lot of things you cannot expect, like I said. And again, that experience applied to a 13-year-old. Saying thank you is extremely challenging. I know that. And then I'm sorry may not apply. In my contract, it's I'm sorry for the negative things I did to you. All right. So we do have to step into a higher level of awareness again. But I personally forgive you and I love you. And this is again transpersonal. It's a humanity type of love, and this does come from a very high place, okay? It is what I call cosmic consciousness, and it assumes that the full capability, the full potential, the fully activated love includes forgiveness. So it's unconditional love, which also automatically means unconditional forgiveness. And that is the energy that the prime creatorix, Mother, Father, God-sciousness, exists within and exudes. That is the energy. That is the fully highest type of love that humanity can experience. Unconditional, therefore, unconditional forgiveness is included in it. So if a person is ready to jump on the "there's nothing to forgive" bandwagon, awesome, if they are actually experientially capable of holding that frequency, all right? It's a fine line, or it's not. It's a very thick line. Moving on to how we untie. Oops, no, that says untie. Yes, how we untie karmic knots. There are some other suggested ways, and some of them in this book that I mentioned. The first one being non-attachment. We're talking about karmic knots or karmic ties. Cord cutting is a metaphor here, but you don't just go through with a set of shears and cutting. You can't do that. Non-attachment is a state of mind. Another way to do this is through, I'm just going to come out here and say it, entheogens, dissolves boundaries. I do recommend that you do it with a guide, and you can do it with highest intention to dissolve boundaries and dissolve attachment. And that would look something like this. Creating an altar, including pictures, memorabilia, a letter you have written, whatever, with the intent to transcend the karma. That means attachments, okay? And then taking the substance of a high enough dosage and purity, with possibly a sitter right next to you, or some other form of guiding, all right? Entheogens, psychedelics, dissolve boundaries, which means they dissolve the ego. The ego is the false belief in separation. In fact, there is only one thing in existence. It's everything, which is the prime creator, source, mother, father, God-sciousness, Hunab-ku, whatever you want to call it, Brahman, okay? That's the only thing that exists. You as a individual entity do not exist as an individual entity. You are everything. You are a holy hologram. You are a sacred spark. You are a divine fractal of all that exists, which is consciousness to begin with, all right? Then we created physicality to play with, and that's what we're doing here, playing and learning down in Earth School. Dissolving those boundaries will help you. Another way to transcend karma. This is a quote, actually. Attachment to the small self, the shadow ego, creates karma. Non-attachment to the small self, the shadow ego, dissolves karma. That is my DJ Crispy remix of what Dr. Motoyama said. He didn't say small self or shadow ego. He wrote this a long time ago. This I do believe to be a little more inclusive of what we're talking about. So non-attachment dissolves karma. Well, what does that mean? How do you transcend the need to reincarnate? The only reason we reincarnate is to clear up our karma. And a lot of us never do that. That's why we're here. We chose to be reborn, to transcend our karma, to clear up our karmic bank account. We need to get to a zero balance. You cannot have any money owing to anyone, or you're coming back again. Very simple. One of the best ways to do that, the only way, is complete non-attachment, which is not so easy to do, but it has been taught for thousands of years. The Japanese word is applied to the Buddhist teachings that are over 2,600 years old. Japanese word chosaku, any action done without attachment or consideration for the results. You may be familiar with Bashar, the entity channeled by Daralanka. He has said, oh, so many times. And so has Abraham Hicks, saying, plant your seed, shoot your arrow, and then it's done. Don't sit around waiting. Oh, when is my thing gonna manifest? Because that kills it. All right. But chosaku, any action done. This is day to day. This is doing the dishes. All right. Ram Dass teaches be here now and be unattached. I'm adding that. Don't do the dishes with your small self, your ego. Just the dishes are being done. All right. Other ways that this has been taught. Patanjali taught yama, rules of abstention, things you will not do that create karma. Okay, anything that creates karma, anything with any attachment to it. Abstaining from sex is a good way, but I should say abstention from ejaculation is the main thing. You can still have sex, but just don't share the fluid that way for the boys, and I suppose that means the same for the girls. What you're attempting to do is dissolve boundaries of separation, and yeah, making love is one good way to do that. Niyama is all of your moral precepts. There's far, far, far more information on this out there. This is just basic. The asanas is what most Westerners call yoga. That's a very small part of the whole teachings. Pranayama. It's interesting here that these actually blend together like I was saying earlier with the chakras and even the types of karma. They blend together. You can't separate any one of these, especially with number 5, 6, 7, and 8. They all go together. And I think 1, 2, 3, 4 all go together, or certainly 3 and 4. 1 and 2 are possibly extensions of each other. 3 and 4 all go together, of course, and then 5, 6, 7, 8 go together. And surrender is the complete giving up of the ego. And again, this is taught by Dr. Motoyama. Please listen to those. This part was in the 3rd of 3 videos in my channel. Now, I do want to introduce one last aspect to the 3 U's, the divinity, Trinity, as I call it. The creation is the best word. Creator, to say the creator, creates separation. That means there's a creator over here, and then boom, created everything else. Wrong. Creation. You can even narrow that down a little bit to creativity. That is what exists, and it's infinite. Okay? That's where you get into multiple universes and multidimensionality, although it could be said that each universe is existing within the same dimensional framework. Is possible to say that. However, saying there is a creator and we are the creation is boom, separation. Ignore it. Don't call it the creator. Call it creation. Okay? The creation started off with unconditional love. And then once the physical universe, and then individuality came into it, there was the first experience of separation, which accompanied fear, the first experience of fear, which is non-love, basically the opposite. We were taught by the Pleiadians, again, thank you very much, that the only two actual experiences of emotion are love and fear, and they're on the same pole. It's the opposite end of love is fear, and I'm talking pure terror is the opposite of unconditional love. Now, one of the early entities that experienced that also created a lot of mentalisms around it, which was probably, although I'm not going to say absolutely definitely, was probably the initiation of karma. The entity that first experienced fear, the fear was, excuse me, being separate from everything else, being not included in God-sciousness, and that sounds like a root chakra fear to me. And then it created these mentalisms around why it was kicked out. It never was. It created the concept of being kicked out of the Garden of Eden, perhaps. Yes, that came down billions of years later and into our framework. All right. However, the creation, which was originally and only unconditional love, through the experience of the imagination of terror, fear, created unconditional forgiveness. And at the same time, unconditional trust that each individual, which is not actually possible, there is only one thing in existence. All is one. Each experiencer of individuality that also experiences the concept of sin. There is no such thing as sin. It's not possible. But there is energy that can be used in positive or negative ways on the pole, all right? And the original of everything was unconditional love that then, through this illusion of separation, necessitated the creation of unconditional forgiveness, automatically also created the existence of unconditional trust that every single individual that goes away to experience the illusion of separation will come back to the fold, to oneness. It's built in. It has to. You can't have non-oneness. It's a temporary illusion. Now, I also believe that to be what the Pleiadians were talking about. Our ancestors came from another universe that had achieved completion by discovering we are creation. All right. Karma is an illusion. It's very, 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 very real in one sense, and it's complete illusion. It is the ego. We call it the soul that's coming back into a body, which is an illusion. And we say it's the soul, but really, all karma is the ego, which is the illusion of separation. Wow. So, I hope that helps you. Remember, these three right here will help you. Meditation will help you. Yoga will help you. Chosaku, non-attachment. Do what you need to do to the best of your ability. I'm just going to read a little quote here to finish us off, okay? When the self, and by that he means the ego, the shadow ego, the small self, when the self is not acting, there is no desire or attachment to the results of the action, and therefore the action does not create karma. No matter what the action is, if there is no attachment, there is no karma. No matter what the action is. Therefore, do not judge any actor or any action. It's not for you to judge. As long as the person doing the acting is unattached in any way to the outcome, it created no karma. A little bit more. This is the essential key to dissolving and transcending karma. Formally created karma ensures that a person will meet with a continuation of events to which he or she will have to react. When an individual attains a state where they simply act to the best of their ability without attachment to the results of any given action, they are able to dissolve the manifesting karma rather than create more. Eventually, their personal karma will disappear. They will transcend karmic limitations and unite with the higher levels of existence. Een Lak'esh Namaste.